So I wanted to organize some of my thoughts around how I want to approach going into 2025, knowing what I guess like learned in 2024, which I did a recap video, basically taking my small business a little bit more seriously. Some of that will revolve around basically getting more organized, including just physically like organizing my space a little better so I can figure out like where things are and also organizing my thoughts, structuring a little bit better around my goals, and just how I work on different projects, trying to figure out what tools will be helpful, which ones should I actually pay for, what is going to be worth that investment in terms of saving my time, setting a really strong foundation and kind of like infrastructure for how I want to operate as the business grows a little bit. That will also include kind of like my strategies around my shop updates, what markets I want to sign up for and participate in this year, and how do I vet those based off of costs like booth fees and marketing that they're doing, being a lot more thoughtful about that, looking out for different opportunities. If things go well and I have a more established catalog in the next, I would say like 6 months, I would love to go into wholesale for local stores that like to feature local artists, other small business owners. I think that's something that I would love to get into just to diversify the streams of income a little bit. Especially having ADHD, it's great in some ways because I have so many ideas constantly. I don't know where to prioritize or what to start with. So I end up doing a little bit of everything, but it takes a long time to finish any one thing. What I'm starting to do is use Notion and just the free version. I like a very basic structure with their like tasks and projects template to make sure that I'm carving out each project. So, for example, either a shop update or a market that I've signed up for, and breaking it down into different tasks. So, like, what kinds of products do I want to work on, setting deadlines on those, and what kinds of like content do I need to put out, breaking it down into smaller steps, making sure that I'm working towards those. Of course, this doesn't guarantee that I will be working on them in the order that I should be, but at least I have awareness of what I should be doing. So that's something that I'm working on. Having, I guess, like tools to manage inventory. So right now I'm using Inventora, which is a tool that you can use to track inventory of your finished products as well as materials if you hand make anything, which for me that often includes say tote bags. The tote bags themselves would be the materials, and then once I make them into a finished product they can be tracked in products. So there is a free version, but there is a limit to how many materials and how many products you can actually track. And in order to integrate it with Etsy or Shopify, or both, you can actually do both, which is what I'm planning on doing. It is $19 per month if you pay annually. So I think making a lot of these decisions around what I want to invest in, like the paid version of tools, if it's actually worth it, or if it's something I can be a little scrappy and get by with just keeping a Google sheet somewhere, which is what I had done for most things, I guess, leading up to now, because I didn't have a huge catalog, and I still don't, but I know that I will have more. And so I'd rather set up the infrastructure for that now. Having that tool that can automatically sync any sales that come in, also, it'll automatically pull through Shopify and Etsy and update the inventory for you. So I am okay with paying $19 a month. I think that's totally worth the time that I would be saving, like manually updating inventory myself. And it'll also let you know like if something is running low, whether it's a material or a finished product, so I can know when to restock. Especially if I need to work with a manufacturer, it does take more time. Usually it takes about like 2 to 3 weeks to ship. So that will be really, really helpful. The other thing, I think, also just tracking expenses. I haven't decided if I want to use like a QuickBooks or anything to track. I do want to, but I have a lot of thoughts and just disagree with a lot of how Intuit runs its business based off of principle. They make it very difficult to find the cheapest version of whatever their product is. So, for example, if you go to their pricing page, I think the lowest option starts at like $29 a month or something. But if you look up and like Google specifically, QuickBooks Solopreneur, then you get like the $20 a month version. And you wouldn't know to find that page if you didn't know that product existed. So it just seems very deceptive to me, and I just don't feel great about supporting it. But like separately, whatever. If I have to use it eventually, I will. But right now, I think I'm okay with just having one credit card to track all of my expenses for now. But if y'all have any like recommendations or insight into why I should use a QuickBooks or something similar, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just gonna put that off until I have to do it. But might not be the smartest thing. We'll see. The other thing that is a very big move for me, opening a Shopify. The reasoning behind that is so that I can build out my own branding. I know a lot of people talk a lot about the fees associated with Etsy, and there are a lot of fees. I will say, I think in terms of numbers, the amount of revenue I had, I don't think that I was making enough where the difference in fees is greater than the cost of signing up for Shopify every month. And what I mean is Shopify is basically, I think, like $29 or about $30 a month if you sign up for the annual membership. And then they don't have transaction fees. They have credit card processing fees, which Etsy also has. Etsy's like transaction fees are 6.5%, which is a large amount, but I don't think I was making enough from last year where that amount of revenue, like 6.5% of that would have been more than $30 a month. But I do think in the long term it will be better for me. And just in terms of traffic, I was bringing in just over 50% average over across the year. So it does make me think that, hey, like at least I am capable of bringing some traffic to my shop. So I'm definitely going to give that an earnest go this time around. And so what I do like about Shopify is that you can customize a lot of things. It actually reminds me a lot of when I was kind of customizing like Zanga blogs back in the day, because you can go into the code and change things like styling and certain functions. There's also a lot of apps that you can add to integrate, say like if you want to include like a function for people to review products. That's also very helpful. So I added that. I just think that like functionally, there's so many other things that you can do. So I can have it integrate with Facebook and Instagram so that people can shop directly through Instagram and never leave the page. And so I think anything that will help make it easier for people to browse and check out, because that is where I post a lot of updates on my shops or what I'm working on. Anything that makes it easier so they don't have to leave the site and doesn't cost me anything extra for using that feature. So I don't think Etsy has a capability of doing that. I think you had to like manually upload your catalog, which I'm just not doing all that. You can also integrate it with Pinterest too, which admittedly I'm a little less familiar with, but I am spending a little bit more time trying to get a feel for that. But being able to have that plugged in as an extra sales channel is always a plus, in my opinion. I also like that with Shopify, you can organize things by collections more. Certain products can fall into multiple collections. So I have it broken down into like categories in terms of like keychains, pins, stickers, but then I also want to organize it by themes too. So if I have like Asian American type content or Asian American themed products, I can group those together. If I have like LGBTQ pride products, those can be grouped together. So things can fall into multiple groups. With Etsy, everything is like only one section, and a section operates as kind of like a folder, and you can only put it in one folder. So I can only split it up, at least for right now. How I have it organized is by product type. So things like stickers, keychains, pins. I'm not really able to group them by any other way. So that's something that I also feel is pretty limiting. But I think overall, what I'm finding is that Etsy is a really good place to start. they do a lot of the legwork for you. So they'll collect sales tax and remit them for you, versus Shopify will collect them for you, but you do have to file them separately yourself, I think every quarter or something. So it is a little bit more work. It's also more work to set up your website, but you can have a lot more control over how your website looks, how you want to organize things, what types of like apps or plugins you want to add, and just build, I think, better customer loyalty too. So it also does come with like a newsletter, which I'm really excited about. So I'm trying to get more into like email marketing in a way that's not spammy, because that's like not my style at all. I definitely want to have that available just to send like updates of when I have new things in the shop. If I'm doing any sort of pop-ups, I want to be able to share that information with people in case they want to come out and support or just shop in person. And also that helps them get exposure into other small businesses at those markets. So I do think it would be really helpful just overall. And, be able to send people special discounts for their birthdays and things like that. So that's not really something I can do with Etsy. So I'm excited to kind of lean more into that. But yeah, so ultimately, I don't think I'm going to delete my Etsy shop by any means. I definitely still do get some traffic, especially with people going to Etsy. They are actively looking to buy something. And if you have your keywords and your SEO set up well, you can still get a decent amount of traffic and some sales here and there. I mean, last year I didn't do any sort of marketing and still was able to pull in like 1 or 2 orders per month. So I don't think I'll return it off in the near future. And especially if people have like gift cards or whatever, it's just easier to have that. Like if they have free money, like I would rather they spend it on my shop instead of forcing them to go to my Shopify. And ultimately, I do think that there are a lot of issues with Etsy as well, where it's a lot of like Temu, AliExpress drop shippers now, and it's really drowning out, I think, a lot of the people that actually hand make their products. Honestly, as like a shopper, I also am starting to avoid Etsy a little bit. I'm kind of just looking for people on social media and they go into their shops or finding their Etsy page if they have one from there, as opposed to searching on Etsy itself. But that's just me personally. The other big piece that I think is important expanding to a Shopify is really building out my own personal branding. I think when people buy things from Etsy, it's very similar actually to buying on something like Amazon, where it's like a general marketplace. If you buy something, you don't always remember where you got it from in terms of like the artist. A lot of times it's like you'll find cute things on there. Somebody asks you where you got it, you usually just say, "Oh, I found it on Etsy." It's more associated with Etsy's brand than your personal brand. So I'm trying to give myself opportunities to move away from that. It may cost a little bit more upfront. I do think the long-term benefits outweigh the temporary increase in spend, if that makes sense. The other thing that I'm experimenting on Shopify is not offering free shipping on everything. So currently on my Etsy shop, I do offer free shipping on everything. The reason behind that is because Etsy prioritizes sellers that offer free shipping in search results. So in order to increase visibility, I feel like that's something that I have to do to increase my chances of being seen. But what that means is I do have to kind of bake the cost of shipping into the product itself, which is fine, I think, if somebody is just buying one item. But if they're buying multiples of items, they're kind of getting overcharged for that amount. I don't necessarily bake the whole cost of shipping into the item price. So what I mean is, like, if it costs $4 to ship, I'm not just going to increase what I would have charged by $4 whole, but I will add a little bit to offset some of that cost, because ultimately it's not free for everybody. It's free for the customer, but I have to pay for shipping. In some ways, if someone buys like 5 items, they're actually paying for shipping 5 times. And so I want to kind of discourage that. And so for Shopify, I am including free shipping if you buy over a certain amount, but for lower order values, stickers and bookmarks, anything that can be shipped in a flat, like letter sized envelope, it'll just be $1, because it basically costs the cost of a stamp to ship that. I think most people are okay with paying $1 for stickers, and if anything, it does encourage them to buy more. But we'll see. I think that is mostly an experiment for me at this stage. because I don't have to offer free shipping on Shopify just to get views. Like I'm bringing my own traffic anyways. So the prices of the products themselves are also lower on Shopify by a little bit to kind of offset that. So we'll see how that goes. So I think going forward, I will still keep my Etsy relatively updated, but it'll just be at a slower pace. I'm going to be prioritizing my Shopify first and then potentially just adding what I think will do well on my Etsy. And so it'll be a slower update there. So I won't have everything on there the way that I will have on my Shopify. I think Shopify will always be the place where I have the most expansive catalog, slightly lower prices. The other thing that I want to focus more on is have some goals that I can work towards. And I think what I want to do is I will split them into two buckets where one is almost 100% within my control. So things like putting out X number of pieces of content a week or a month, for applying for a certain number of markets every quarter, versus something that's more aspirational and less within my control is more like milestones that I can celebrate when I hit. So maybe like X number of followers on whatever platform, like X number of sales, maybe like $500 in revenue in just online sales in a month or a quarter. I still need to figure out what those numbers are, but I do want to at least categorize it in that way, because I think it's very easy to come up with goals that are more aspirational milestones, but they're not really as much in control, or they're not as much within my control. However, if I work on the things that are within my control that I brought up earlier, those do eventually lead towards progress, towards all of the milestones. And so if I only focus on the milestone goals, which I have a tendency to, if I don't like consciously force myself to think about, to break things down into smaller steps that are within my control, it's very easy to get discouraged if you don't hit those. And I think especially with ADHD, you're like very impatient, at least for me. Like if I set this goal yesterday, I don't hit it today, it's very easy to feel like a lot of time has passed. Like, why haven't I hit it yet? Even though when you objectively say it out loud like that, it makes no sense as to why things would just happen overnight. And so it's easier to have those aspirational goals, but still have things to work towards too that are within my control. So that at least I can get like the dopamine hit of like checking something off. So that's something that I think is helpful. I also want to be really mindful that I'm setting things that are sustainable, right? So like what wouldn't be sustainable is if I told myself, hey, I need to do like 5 long form YouTube videos a week. Like that is just not going to happen, and I'm going to burn myself out in like 2 weeks. So something that I'm trying to be mindful of is making sure that I am setting things that are sustainable long term. Also, right now, I have just like a ton of ideas and not enough time to execute on them. I want to add all of these different types of products to my shop, but I need to prioritize which ones I think make sense. And I also should not be pushing myself to make new things all the time. I think right now, because I have a lot of ideas that I have not had time to implement, I'm recognizing that the next month or two maybe will be spent on making those ideas materialize, but also acknowledging that that is not something that I'm trying to sustain long term. So I think there will be a period of like 1 to 2 months, maybe 3 months, that I have a lot of new stuff planned. But after that, I definitely want to slow down and start just like drawing art things for fun that are not related to a product, because I do think that is something I also want to build in time for. Yeah, otherwise I'm just going to burn myself out. And to some extent, I am acknowledging that I probably will hit burnout. I have just accepted that that is a cycle that I tend to go through as an ADHD person, that I'm not capable of operating sustainably. The way I operate best is go like 200 to 300% for a short period and then hit a wall and then just rot and do maybe like 10-20% for a little while, and then I will feel rested and recharged, and then I can go to 300% again. That is just how I operate. And like what I can do is make the ranges like make that range less drastic, but I don't think I could ever just be a healthy, normal person and average that out long term. That's kind of what my realistic goal is to manage the highs and lows of my like energy levels to be a little bit closer. So, yeah, if there's anything that you think would be helpful for me to expand on or anything, let me know. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I just needed to kind of dump all my thoughts and organize them. And if that's helpful for anybody, I'm happy to share that. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see how the rest of this year goes. This time of year marks around like 2 years since I first started this as any sort of like side project. And it's also my birthday this week. So I am offering a discount code in the description box for anyone who wants to check out my shop. The code will be active until the end of the month. So anything that you see will be 15% off with that discount code. So feel free to check that out. And then I will share more in the next video.